she's so beautiful and she's so amazing, and he keeps going back there so that he can see her again. He ends up asking for her hand in marriage, even though this girl never speaks a word. So it has been a while since I'd made a Metalhead's book club video, so I thought I'd do one today because I actually read 4 books that were, I was going to say recommended, but actually only one of these was recommended by the person in question. I decided to dig into some of the literary inspirations behind the band AVANTASIA. So AVANTASIA is a German metal opera band that is very safe for beginners. If you are not used to listening to metal, this one is perfectly Cate Blanchett. And I found an interview with their frontman, Tobias Sammet, where he reeled off this great big long list of writers. He didn't list like individual books, just more like writers with narrative styles or atmospheres, specifically in connection with the album Moonglow. And another book he has recommended in the past, which is the one I am going to start with, is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which makes complete sense because AVANTASIA does have a very Dickensian Victorian London feel about it. So I'm pretty sure everybody knows the story of Christmas Carol. A very selfish and rich man, Ebenezer Scrooge, is visited on the night of Christmas Eve by 3 the spirit of Christmas past, the spirit of Christmas present, and the spirit of Christmas yet to come, who essentially show him out for being a terrible person and deeply, deeply inspire him to just do better. It's a really simple and sweet story, I think one that everybody can read and just connect with. It's very, very sweet. Because on some level or another, we can all improve ourselves in some way. Just be nice to people, be generous, because we all have something positive to contribute to this world that is miserable enough as it is, so let's try not to make it worse. And this has become just a classic fairy tale at this point. It is so, so sweet. So yeah, one book that I would definitely say that this makes complete sense with the entire world of AVANTASIA, not like any album in particular. Also, one that I particularly like, and read classics. Read classics. It is very important. Obviously, Edgar Allan Poe figures amongst his inspirations. Like, there are a lot of direct quotes to Edgar Allan Poe. Again, just thinking of the album Moonglow, the song The Raven Child has direct quotes from the Raven poem, but I am not going to go into that because about 99% of metal artists reference Edgar Allan Poe at some point or another. So if I start going into Poe references with every single metal artist that I cover in this series, I am not going to see the end of it. So Edgar Allan Poe is one of his references. I'm going to leave it at that. Then we have Algernon Blackwood. So as I said, he didn't state any actual books or stories, just Algernon Blackwood, and this book happened to be on my TBR, so it gave me an excuse to read it. This is a collection of stories, all of which take place in the American far north, so the vast snowy pine forests in Northern America. It also takes place in late Victorian times, so frontier Canada. And I have to say, Algernon Blackwood went very much to the same school as H.P. Lovecraft when it comes to horror, only he's not lost in space or dealing with insanely huge and unimaginable monsters. His characters are simply going hunting in a forest. I have to say this, it takes a lot to frighten me as a reader. It takes a lot for me to be like, okay, I need a moment. I've got pretty thick skin, I can deal with stuff. This type of stuff, however, like these characters being alone in these forests, these forests are so vast, they are on Earth. They are earthly things that we can see, that we can touch. but they are so big. These characters end up so far flung from civilization in a part of the world where at this point in history there weren't actually that many people as a general rule. They are so alone and so isolated and just faced with the immense, cold, unfeeling, unforgiving nature. That is so terrifying. You don't need imaginary monsters or imaginary space travel. We have terrifying things here on Earth. Just take a stroll in the Canadian woodland. That'll do it. And there are supernatural elements in this story. There is a Wendigo in one of the stories. There are like wolf creatures. There's a spirit that like is looking for rest, or nature keeping balance with itself. Even though the stories have a supernatural element, the fact that these characters are so isolated is just that is what just makes it terrifying to me. So yeah, Algernon Blackwood's writing definitely has that cosmic horror atmosphere to it, but without the cosmic horror, if you get my drift. So another writer he shouted out was E.T.A. Hoffman, and I got hold of this book in my local thrift store. This is The Sandman. So this is a short story which kind of says a lot about how women were regarded in the late 18th century, because holy hell. So this story is about a man who goes to a ball and he meets this young girl and he finds her so beautiful, so amazing, and he sits with her and oh my god, she's so beautiful and she's so amazing, and he keeps going back there so that he can see her again, and he ends up asking her father, mentor, caregiver or whatever for her hand in marriage, even though this girl never speaks a word. She doesn't say anything or really react to him in any way. She is just so beautiful that he's like, yep, I'm gonna marry her, even though she behaves like a literal object, because it turns out that that is exactly what she is. She is in fact an automaton. So the late 1700s, 1800s had a fascination with automatons. It was this art form that really emerged and took off and was very popular back then, which unfortunately the art of which has been lost today. I speak about this more in detail in my Hugo Cabret video, which I will link up here. I have a whole section about automatons and just how amazing they are. They are amazing things. So the scary part of this is supposed to be that this inventor created an automaton who is so lifelike that a man actually thought that she was a real woman and he wanted to marry her. Honestly, I don't think he cared whether or not she was a real woman. Like, that's what stands out to me. It's not like, oh, this is scary, like, it is possible to make a mechanical being that is similar to a human and that might actually fool you, but, like, is nobody bothered by the fact that she never speaks or kind of reacts in any way? She is just a literal object, because that is what men wanted out of women back then, just for them to be objects and just smile and be pretty. Like, that's the scary part to me in this story. So yeah, E.T.A. Hoffman, thank you, but no thank you. And now we come to Arthur Machen. So I got this book, which is called The White People and Other Weird Stories. This is the book that I feel makes the most sense when it comes to the album Moonglow specifically, because a lot of stories in this book, again, they're very Lovecraftian. They're written in the kind of same voice of somebody who has seen something very difficult to describe and very unbelievable, and who are trying to rationalize something that isn't rational in some way by telling their stories. Bonus points, one of the main characters, one of the narrators, is actually a woman. Well done, Arthur Machen, because again, this is like a Victorian author. A lot of these stories are about finding people, like kind of, I guess, mythical beings who live in underground worlds or parallel worlds, to which there is a doorway somehow into our world, and they tend to be quite small creatures. And in the album Moonglow is about a small creature who is from a different world to the human world where there is no sun, and he wants to be able to walk in the sunlight, but he can't. So he comes into the human world and wants to be out there in the sunlight, but he can't because he's a creature of darkness. He can only exist in the Moonglow, hence the album being called Moonglow. I really felt it in these pages. I really felt that creature being one of the ones that these narrators happen upon. I'm only like talking about the stories in this book that relate to AVANTASIA specifically, because there are some really interesting stories in this book, specifically one about how animals take over the world, the human world, but that is for another video. So that's it. That was me exploring the literary references that inspired AVANTASIA. I found this really interesting. Like, if you want me to do stuff like this again, like look into literary references, if you have bands with lots of literary references that you would like me to discuss in these videos, please tell me in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't hesitate to like, share, comment and subscribe. I have a playlist dedicated to this series. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.